So this afternoon with my presentation, I'd like to take a look at using trees within the context of urban stormwater management from a design perspective. As Eric had mentioned, urban development usually involves a loss of tree canopy and a subsequent increase in impervious cover. This results in an increased runoff, higher stream velocities, increased erosion, and non-point pollution, and then later on lower base flow. In order to address the impact of urbanization, there's been an effort throughout the nation in order to determine how urban trees will impact stormwater and then quantify the costs and the benefits. From an engineer's point of view, Eric was straight on. We love to play with the numbers. So we're really looking for the numbers and how we can play them to our best benefit. One study commissioned by the state of Indiana in 2010 surveyed 23 of their communities and found that the benefits of the urban forest ranged from stormwater, air quality, energy savings, and improved tax base. And that all amounted to about $79 million annually statewide. Over $24 million of that was just with the stormwater benefits associated with the rainfall capture, the decreased flows, and runoff treatment. Similarly, in 2014, Bertrand and Hopton from Ball State University and the US EPA surveyed street trees in Cincinnati, Ohio, and estimated that the stormwater interception value of the street trees was about $200 per kilometer of street length. For context, in general, about 40 to 50% of the public space available within cities will be just the streets. So this represents a very valuable space for public implementation of stormwater infrastructure. With the acknowledgement that trees are an important component of managing urban stormwater, design professionals such as our architects, our landscape architects, and our engineers need to have standardized tools to quantify the performance of the trees. What benefits will they provide and how much will it cost? So in order to meet this need, the Water, Environment, and Reuse Foundation, also known as WERF, has published an estimated curve number for a variety of different BMPs. A curve number is a parameter that's used within the SCS method or the TR55 method for estimating hydrologic performance. Curve numbers will range from about 30 to 98, with the larger numbers, for instance, the impervious cover has a curve number of 98, associated with cover types more likely to produce higher runoff. How they did this was WERF compiled data from a variety of runoff observation studies and then developed curves to estimate the average runoff from some of the more common BMPs. Included in that suite of BMPs were trees. And if you'll see the highlighted in green, the tree cover, you'll see that they fall between vegetated swales and rain barrels. This is fairly logical if you look at the function that trees provide, that interception of rainfall in the canopy as well as the preferential flow. So let's actually look at the numbers, how this method performs. If you were to take about 10,000 square feet of impervious cover and apply 1 inch of rainfall and use this methodology, you would estimate that 639 cubic feet of runoff would result from that 1 inch of rainfall. For context, that's about 400 feet of a 2-lane road. If you were to take that same amount of area and add tree cover over it, it would only result in about 3.9 cubic feet of runoff. From a management point of view, the next question that's going to come to mind is, okay, if I need to replicate the function of trees with a standard BMP, how would I do this? So taking that into account, you would have to design using standard design parameters with depths, etc., about a 25-foot by 10-foot bioretention feature. Now, the unit costs are going to vary widely across the nation, but here in South Texas, that's going to cost about $25,000, or $2,500, sorry. inevitably the next question is going to be, well, how does that help me meet my regulatory guidance? Most often, when entities implement a stormwater management criteria, they're going to express that in terms of a particular design storm. You might have heard of this in terms of an 85th percentile storm or a 90th percentile storm. And what that is that when you take a look at the long-term precipitation record of a locality, and then you order your precipitation events and calculate the percent exceedance, or how often a particular type of rainfall event is to occur, you can describe each event as a percentile storm. From previous studies, we know that trees will capture as initial abstraction anywhere from 0.2 inches to 0.8 inches. And when we overlay that with a rainfall record, for instance, the example in San Antonio, we can see that this would represent anywhere from about 25% to 70% of total rainfall events. So we understand that trees provide a significant tool in the toolbox of urban stormwater management. But much of the time, that's not going to be the end-all, be-all. It's going to have to be a component of an overall stormwater management strategy. Then the next question that often comes to mind is, okay, what about metrics other than volume? Eric had mentioned this with the lag time question. What's the timing of the peak flows, and how is that impacted by canopy? If we take that same impervious cover and give it a 100-foot flow length and apply 1 inch of rainfall, we can see it would take a little under 2 minutes for it to flow. And this is with using that same TR55 method to make these estimates. So 2 minutes of flow from start to finish. If you were to take that same 100-foot length and add in tree canopy, it would take just under 5 minutes for it to flow start to finish. So this represents a significant decrease in that peak flow rate. The result of this reduction in flow rate is that you reduce the erosive forces of the runoff and the stream flow when that runoff eventually hits that pour point. However, a word of caution. Remember that the curve number is an empirical method. That is just that. It's an estimate. And this method is impacted by soil type and antecedent moisture conditions. And the performance of trees are going to vary throughout the year and by the type of tree. So the designer is going to need to modify their estimates to be on the conservative side to account for all of these variables. But on the whole, trees are increasingly being acknowledged as an important component for managing stormwater in the urban system. As a result, there's a range of options that are being developed on how to include trees within the management system, and an associated preference and a hierarchy of preference for different techniques. At the very top is preservation. This makes sense. If you have a very large tree that's giving you many benefits already, you want to maintain those benefits. When preservation is not an option, incorporating BMPs and trees together is the next preference. So that would be like planting trees in a stormwater wetland or a bioretention feature. And if you just don't have the space within a tight development envelope for a traditional BMP, then you can always break up the impervious surface using tree wells or small features. This strategy has been implemented in a variety of locations throughout the U.S., and in some cases it's required. For instance, North Carolina requires that bioretention features have at least one tree species in their planting plan, and while Minnesota doesn't require it, it's highly recommended that the bioretention features will include trees. But this represents a unique opportunity to take advantage of many of the benefits, including stacking your benefits. By combining bioretention with different trees, you can improve the function of the bioretention. For instance, a study in 2016 estimated that when you have a treed bioswale, somewhere between 46% and 72% of the stormwater abstraction function of the bioswale can be attributed to the trees within it. So in order to encourage the use of trees, many different entities are developing credit schemes within their stormwater regulations for either preserving or planting trees. And there's a wide variety of different metrics and credit methodologies. So a couple of examples. Indianapolis requires that when you develop a site, you quantify your impervious cover on the site, and then that's used to calculate your mitigation requirements. If you implement trees and plant new trees or preserve new trees, you're allowed to use that to reduce that impervious cover by a set amount per tree. And it's that net impervious cover that you use to calculate your mitigation requirements. So it represents a tangible value to developers there. In Minnesota, they have a variety of stormwater and nutrient credit requirements, and for each tree, there's a calculation that has a set credit under each plan. And then all the way in Washington, D.C., they allocate a set stormwater volume per tree for credit within your stormwater plan. So there's a lot of different varieties and different ways that this can be implemented. What that's resulted in is the development of what's being referred to as the next generation of stormwater BMPs, which is simply the evolution of integrating trees into the stormwater BMPs themselves. This has resulted from engineers and other designers playing the numbers and wanting to get the most amount of benefit and the most credit for the least cost. And this can include BMPs such as tree trenches or tree boxes at the lower end, which allow trees to be planted in sidewalks or parking areas. You're often going to find these as a component of a permeable parking surface, and quite a few technologies are being developed and marketed which maintain the ability of the runoff to infiltrate into the well area and allow for the root growth and support of the tree throughout its lifetime. Another BMP is simply a twist on an old BMP, and it's forested wetlands. They're a standard stormwater wetland, but there's now set guidance for how, where, and what species to plant within the wetland. So you're going to see these as stormwater wetlands with cypress trees or other very water-tolerant species. And then you have options such as the forested filter strips, which are simply a souped-up version of the old vegetated filter strips, where instead of just a turf area to convey stormwater from your impervious area to the next BMP within your treatment train, you have a combination of trees, grass, and other ground covers that will not only convey the water, but also improve the rainfall capture and treatment. But as always, remember that when implementing trees in your stormwater management plan, it needs to be the right tree in the right place, planted at the right time, and with the right technique. So after the designers have played with the numbers to maximize their design, decrease their cost, it needs to be reviewed for appropriateness, for where the trees are located, and to make sure that the design itself gives each tree the best chance of success and thriving within the design. So I hope you take away from both Eric's and my presentation that trees provide a variety of functions that can be utilized within the stormwater management plan, and that there are a variety of tools out there for estimating the function and cost of the tree. And this is being increasingly acknowledged and embraced by regulatory and management entities. I'd like to leave you with a couple of resources that could be helpful in designing and estimating the performance of stormwater BMPs with integrated trees. The first of which is a design manual published by the U.S. Forest Service for those next generation BMPs. And the second is a manual published by the U.S. EPA for implementing street trees. Also, don't forget to check out WRF's website for curve numbers for a variety of stormwater BMPs so that you can run the numbers for your own site and see if trees are a potential improvement to your urban stormwater project. And with that, I will turn it over to Jill and answer any questions.
Thank you, Aarin.